Okay, so let's just dive right in. We've got this, a massive stack of source material here, all dedicated to one of the most successful and intensely polarizing artists of the last, what, quarter century?
For sure. Marshall Bruce Mathers III.
Known to literally every corner of the planet as Eminem.
And our mission today is a full biographical deep dive. We're going to chart his path, which is just, it's turbulent. It's
Oh,
unbelievable.
this is a timeline.
No, not at all. Thematically, we're talking from deep poverty in Detroit and Missouri through the birth of, well, the infamous Slim Shady alter ego.
Which was so controversial, but also so necessary for him.
Exactly. All the way up to his status now as the best-selling rapper in history and, a rock and roll Hall of Famer.
And the sheer scope, the impact he's had, it demands this kind of detail. The big picture nugget for you to walk away with right at the top is the scale, just the scale of it all.
It's staggering.
We're talking about smashing sales records in a way that just redefined the music industry. Two different albums selling over 1 million copies.
In a single week.
In 1 week. Then he conquers Hollywood with 8 Mile. He survives this catastrophic prescription drug addiction that nearly killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, maybe the most symbolic moment of all, he becomes the first solo rapper to ever win an Academy Award.
It really is a career that's all about that duality. You have this constant tension between the hyper-aggressive, sometimes shocking art and the very real, very difficult reality of the man behind it.
So to understand the icon, Marshall Mathers,
You have to understand the struggle that created him.
to really get the engine that drives his music, you have to go right back to the beginning.
The absolute beginning.
Marshall Mathers III, born October 17th, 1972, in St. Joseph, Missouri. And the sources, they paint this picture of an early life that was so unstable, so impoverished.
That it just became the immediate visceral fuel for everything that followed, all that anger.
And his childhood was, it was defined by abandonment. His parents, Marshall Bruce Mathers Jr. and Deborah Nelson, they were in a band together.
Right, before they separated. And his father he walked away from the family when Marshall was just 1.5 years old.
Toddler.
Yeah, leaving Debbie to raise him in, well, complete destitution. And that absence is just fundamental to all of his storytelling.
The sources mention this one detail that, for me, just crystallizes that early rejection perfectly.
The letters.
The letters. As a kid, Marshall wrote letters to his father, just trying to connect, and his mother confirmed that every single one,
Everyone came back.
stamped, returned to sender. Just imagine the impact of that kind of repeated, institutionalized rejection on a kid.
That wound, that feeling of being discardable,
Yeah.
it's right there. It's the core material of his early work. You can hear it
And it wasn't just emotional instability, it was geographical, too. They were constantly moving.
all the time. Between Missouri and Michigan, eventually settling mostly in these working-class neighborhoods around Detroit.
And the home life with his mother, Debbie, it was just filled with conflict.
Constantly. The sources detailed just how difficult it was. There was a social worker who described Debbie Nelson as having what was the phrase? A very suspicious, almost paranoid personality.
I was actually surprised to find that level of biographical detail recorded officially like that. But it makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Why that environment, so chaotic, so antagonistic, full of this deep distrust, becomes the psychodrama he explores later on, the Slim Shady LP and the Marshall Mathers LP.
You can't listen to those albums without hearing the echoes of that distrust, that anger towards family, towards authority figures. It's all there.
The lack of security was just everywhere. We also have records of, actual physical hardship.
The bullying incident.
Yeah. In the 4th grade, he was severely injured in an assault by a bully named D'Angelo Bailey.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just a schoolyard fight.
No, this was serious. Marshall sustained major head injuries.
It was so traumatic that Debbie actually filed a lawsuit against the school system in 1982. She alleged negligence.
But the suit was dismissed the next year. A Macomb County judge just ruled that the schools were immune from those kinds of claims.
So you have this physical trauma and then the institutional trauma of being told there's no recourse. And that whole experience later becomes the direct subject matter for the track Brain Damage.
Right. On his major label debut, he just puts it all out there.
And all of this history, the poverty, the unstable family, the trauma, it all leads us right to the geographical heart of his artistic identity.
Detroit. And specifically, 8 Mile Road.
And the title of his film, 8 Mile, it's not just a street name, it's a social boundary. It's a racial boundary.
It's everything. As the sources explain it, 8 Mile Road is what separates the predominantly black city of Detroit from the largely white suburban communities to the north.
And Eminem grew up in trailer parks and housing developments just north of that line in those overwhelmingly white, poor suburbs.
And that positioning is so critical. Here he is, a white rapper immersing himself in a predominantly black art form in a city where that racial and economic line is just drawn in the sand so starkly.
So he had to prove himself, not just as an artist.
But as someone who belonged there, culturally, geographically, everything, despite his skin color. And that tension shaped his entire identity, his whole early career.
His first attempts to break into music, starting around 1988, were spent navigating that scene. He was in local groups like New Jack's, Soul Intent, and his own collective, D12.
Right, he was already working with the Bass brothers, Jeff and Mark Bass's production company. But his official debut came quite a bit later.
That was the 1996 album Infinite, released on an independent label, Web Entertainment.
It was a huge moment for Marshall Mathers, the ambitious lyricist.
But it was a complete commercial failure.
A total flop.
And the feedback was just crushing for him. Detroit DJs pretty much ignored the album entirely, and the sources say the specific criticism he got.
Telling him he sounds like AZ or Nas.
Yeah, and that he should just abandon rap and go into rock and roll. That's what really pushed him over the edge. It catalyzed a total artistic reinvention.
So the failure of Marshall Mathers, the earnest underground MC,
led directly to the violent, chaotic, and completely uncompromising birth of Slim Shady. He felt like he needed a character that would demand attention through sheer shock value.
It was a realization that earnestness wasn't going to cut it in that environment.
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, calculated chaos would. Which brings us to this just crucial turning point. How does the humiliation of Infinite lead directly to the character that would launch him globally?
The mechanism is sublimation, right?
Yeah.
He basically manufactured a persona.
Exactly. A persona that served as an outlet for all that anger, the distrust, the volatility from his childhood that he'd tried to sort of bury or express earnestly before.
So he developed Slim Shady in 1997, and this isn't just a nickname. It's a fully realized, sadistic, violent alter ego.
A vehicle.
It's a vehicle for this raw, unrestricted anger. Lyrics about drugs, rape, murder. But it's important to remember the Slim Shady EP he released that winter, it wasn't just shock value.
That's right. I mean, that's what grabbed the headlines, for sure.
Of course.
But while the EP had all these references to drug use, sexual acts of violence, all designed to provoke, it also had these serious, unvarnished themes reflecting his real life.
Poverty, family difficulties, marital problems.
He was weaponizing his life, but he was also telling the truth about his pain, just, wrapped in this incredibly dark comedy.
And before Dr. Dre ever heard a single track, Eminem was honing his skills in the unforgiving world of battle rap.
The crucible. This is where technical skill matters more than anything else.
He competed in the 1997 Scribble Jam in Cincinnati, which was one of the premier battle circuits at the time. He made it all the way to the finals, but lost.
And after that, he was completely broke. He'd been fired from his job, evicted from his home. He scraped together just enough money to get to Los Angeles to compete in the 1997 Rap Olympics.
And he got second place there, which proved his technical ability was world-class, even if nobody knew who he was commercially.
And that moment in L.A., that's the crucial link in the chain.
It's the whole story. The sources confirm that an Interscope Records intern, Dean Geislinger, was in the crowd. He heard the talent and just asked for a copy of the self-released Slim Shady EP.
And that cassette tape eventually found its way onto the desk of the CEO of Interscope, Jimmy Iovine,
who then played it for Dr. Dre, the legendary producer, founder of Aftermath Entertainment.
And Dre's reaction upon hearing that tape is, it's arguably the most famous discovery story in hip-hop history.
Outside of Snoop, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Dre said, "In my entire career in the music industry, I have never found anything from a demo tape or a CD. When Jimmy played this, I said, find him now."
Wow, just find him now.
He dropped everything because the talent was just that undeniable.
And you have to think about the weight of that statement. This is Dr. Dre, a pioneer of gangsta rap, a co-founder of NWA, the man who helped define the entire West Coast sound.
And he recognizes this raw talent from a struggling white rapper in Detroit, instantly. And his decision to sign him was pretty controversial at the time.
Of course, given the history of hip-hop as a predominantly black art form.
But Dre famously just brushed off the criticism. He delivered this quote that immediately just broke down cultural barriers for white rappers in popular music. He said, "I don't give a fuck if you're purple. If you can kick it, I'm working with you."
And that was it. He signed Eminem to Aftermath and Interscope in March 1998. It was the cosign he needed to survive, to succeed. He had the blessing of a titan.
And their collaborative energy was immediate. The major label debut, the Slim Shady LP, drops in February 1999, and it's an instant global success. Goes quadruple platinum just like that.
It's the perfect pairing of Dre's minimalist, bass-heavy production with Eminem's shock-driven, technically complex stories.
And of course, the album was just saturated in controversy, which Dre understood was exactly what was needed to capture the mainstream's imagination.
Tracks like Guilty Conscience, where Dre is the angel and Eminem is the devil on someone's shoulder.
Right, advising a man on whether to murder his wife, it brought instant media attention.
But the most shocking track, for me, was 97, Bonnie and Clyde. It's this direct callback to his real-life emotional trauma, but twisted through that slim, shady lens.
In it, he's describing disposing of his wife's body in the ocean.
All while sweetly talking to his infant daughter, Haley, who's in the car with him. It's horrific, it's darkly comedic, and it's deeply, deeply personal all at once.
And that track just highlights the intense duality we mentioned. The emotional wound is real, the marital problems, his fierce love for his daughter, but the way he deals with it is by creating this fantasy of absolute nihilistic violence.
And that push-pull between Marshall Mathers and Slim Shady, that's the entire artistic foundation of his career.
It also cemented that collaboration.
Yeah.
Guilty Conscience was the beginning of their musical bond.
Yeah.
Dre has had a role on every single Aftermath album Eminem has released since. It wasn't just a commercial partnership, it was a creative engine that just never stopped.
Okay, so now we move into this period of just absolute, unprecedented commercial dominance. This is where it becomes clear that Eminem wasn't just a controversial artist. He was a record-breaking force that fundamentally redefined sales metrics for the whole industry.
The velocity of it is still staggering to look back on.
It is. The pace was, unprecedented. His follow-up, the Marshall Mathers LP, released in May 2000. It sells a staggering 1.76 million copies.
In the U.S. in its first week alone.
In 1 week. I mean, to put that in perspective for you, this event just shattered two major records at the same time.
So first, he completely eclipses the fastest-selling hip-hop album record, which was previously held by Snoop Dogg's classic, Doggy Style.
A huge record in its own right.
A huge record.
Yeah.
But even more broadly, he smashed the record for the fastest-selling solo album, period, which was held by Britney Spears' pop phenomenon, Baby One More Time.
So he proved a hardcore, complex, explicit rap album could outsell pop royalty. Instantly. It was an undeniable cultural takeover.
That album went on to be certified diamond by the RIAA. That's 10 million units sold just domestically. It sold over 21 million copies worldwide.
And the dominance just kept going. He actually topped himself 2 years later with the Eminem Show in 2002.
The Eminem Show also just flew off the shelves. It sold over 1.332 million copies in its first full week. And again, the scale of this is immense.
It wasn't just a domestic U.S. success, right?
Not at all. The sources confirm it was the best-selling album worldwide for the entire year of 2002.
And crucially, the Eminem Show currently holds the title for the best-selling hip-hop album of all time. It sold something like 27 million copies globally.
The RIAA has certified both the Marshall Mathers LP and the Eminem Show as diamond. So by 2011, Eminem was, and he still is, the only rapper with 2 diamond-certified albums.
That's not just success. That is generational, sustained commercial height that has rarely been matched in any genre.
Looking at the material, though, the themes evolved really quickly.
They did. While the Marshall Mathers LP still had those aggressive, playful, Slim Shady tracks, like the real Slim Shady, the Eminem Show saw Marshall really wrestling with the consequences of his own fame.
He was dealing with the effects of sudden celebrity. His difficult relationships with his wife Kim and his daughter Haley, even his 2000 assault charge.
It showed a greater complexity, maybe even some vulnerability. And the key track, Stan, which explores this intense, dangerous pathology that fame can create in obsessed fans.
That was ranked the 3rd greatest rap song ever by Q magazine. It showed he was acutely aware of the machine he'd created and the power it held.
But despite the maturity in the subject matter, the controversy never went away.
No. Critics noted the shift in the Eminem Show, but one famously dubbed him Eminem for the shocking prevalence of the word motherfucker on the album.
Right. So the language was still explosive, but the subjects were definitely growing up.
And that rapid success also allowed him to transition immediately into being a mogul.
He co-founds Shady Records with his longtime manager, Paul Rosenberg, in late 1999. They immediately sign his Detroit crew D12, Obi Trice, and in this critical joint venture with Aftermath.
They signed the future superstar 50 Cent.
So he wasn't just succeeding, he was building this undeniable rap empire around himself.
And we absolutely cannot skip one of the most defining cultural moments of this whole era. It really showcases his crossover appeal and the controversy around it.
The Grammys performance.
His performance of Stan with the gay icon Elton John at the 43rd Grammy Awards in 2001.
This happened despite intense protests from GL80, that's the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation.
Right, who condemned the decision to pair John with an artist whose lyrics were seen as deeply homophobic and misogynistic at the time. The performance was just an incredible spectacle.
I remember the sources quoting Entertainment Weekly calling the moment the hug heard round the world because it signaled this complicated, maybe transactional, but definitely boundary-breaking gesture of cultural acceptance.
It didn't solve the controversies, not at all. But it placed Eminem squarely in the center of the mainstream cultural conversation. It forced everyone, critics and fans, to reconcile the shocking lyrics with this undeniable talent.
And this crossover was just massive. The sheer weight of his celebrity meant that in July 2000, Eminem became the first white artist ever to be featured on the cover of The Source.
Which was, and still is, a critical hip-hop cultural barometer.
Right, and that recognition confirmed he wasn't viewed as a novelty. He was seen as an essential, defining force by the cultural gatekeepers of the genre itself.
The film 8 Mile, released in 2002, it's so much more than just a movie. It's this self-curated origin story.
It's a semi-autobiographical narrative that takes the foundational myth of Eminem and just sets it in stone for a global audience.
And what's fascinating is the sheer detail the film draws from his life and the unexpected critical acclaim it got.
It was an incredible risk. The film was directed by Curtis Hanson, who was known for serious dramas like L.A. Confidential.
And it's set specifically in 1995 Detroit, showing that period right before Marshall Mathers really cracked the code with Slim Shady. And Eminem stars in his film debut as Jimmy Smith Jr., or B-Rabbit.
I found the notes on the film's production so telling about the risk involved. Director Curtis Hanson was, understandably very cautious about casting him.
He was worried that Eminem's controversial reputation, the shock value, could be a liability that would just overshadow the acting.
The sources mention the industry sentiment perfectly. They cite this remark from Russell Crowe, who heard about the project and said, "Good idea, Curtis, but who are you going to get to play Eminem?"
Which just highlights the huge skepticism. Could this notorious rapper genuinely carry a serious feature film as an actor, and not just a personality?
But Hansen was ultimately convinced. He was won over by what he called Eminem's natural charisma and maybe surprisingly his expressive eyes.
A quality Hansen said was essential for carrying the emotional weight of the story, and that conviction led Eminem to turn down roles in other huge franchises.
Including Training Day and The Fast and the Furious, he committed fully to this film.
And the casting process itself had some incredible details. The film's producer revealed Eminem originally approached Mariah Carey to play his alcoholic mother, Stephanie.
Wow, I didn't know that. That role, of course, went to the Oscar winner Kim Basinger.
And in another classic Hollywood detail, both Seth Rogen and Jason Segel auditioned for the role of B-Rabbit's loyal but clumsy friend, Cheddar Bob.
Let's focus on the narrative arc, though, because it so beautifully captures the reality of his struggle that we were talking about earlier.
B-Rabbit is this blue-collar press operator struggling with crippling stage fright during rap battles at the local venue, The Shelter.
Which is hosted by his best friend, David Porter, or Future.
And his chaotic home life is the main source of tension. He's living in a rundown trailer home, the exact kind of unstable environment he grew up in, with his alcoholic mother Stephanie, his little sister Lily, and his mom's abusive boyfriend Greg.
Who, ironically, turns out to be a former schoolmate. The film makes it so clear that his struggle isn't just artistic. It's a constant fight for basic stability, financially and emotionally.
The journey to that final battle involves so much personal compromise and failure. He asks for extra shifts at the car factory, but gets denied for being late all the time. He's stealing food from the cafeteria just to eat.
You see his loyalty to his friends, the pressure from his mother facing eviction, a violent brawl with his rival crew. This is the reality of the 8 Mile environment.
And the story culminates in this 3-round climactic rap battle. Just a brilliant piece of cinematic writing and performance.
Jimmy agrees to compete after being motivated by his love interest, Alex, and he has to face the intimidating champion, Papa Doc.
But instead of waiting for Papa Doc to unload all the standard insults about his race or his poverty, B-Rabbit takes the stage first.
And executes this brilliant strategic preemptive strike. He dismantles his opponent by acknowledging and embracing every possible insult before Papa Doc can even use them.
He just completely disarms the crowd and his rival by owning his white trash roots, his chaotic home life, his lack of resources.
And then the film gives B-Rabbit the final devastating blow. He exposes Papa Doc's secret.
Papa Doc's real name is Clarence. He grew up wealthy in the suburbs, went to private school, and lives with stable, happily married parents.
So Jimmy exposes Papa Doc's whole carefully constructed thug persona as a total fraud. He uses the contrast between their backgrounds as the ultimate weapon.
And Papa Doc, he's embarrassed, speechless, totally disarmed. He just concedes the battle by handing the microphone back to Future. It's a victory of radical honesty, not just better punchlines.
And the commercial reception just validated the entire project. 8 Mile was a massive success, grossed over $242 million worldwide. It held the record for the highest R-rated November opening for almost 20 years.
The home media release was also historic. It generated $75 million in sales and rentals in its first week alone. It was the biggest DVD debut ever for an R-rated movie at the time.
And then came the crowning achievement, the Oscar win for Lose Yourself.
The song topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 12 weeks, the most for a solo rap song in history. And it won the Academy Award for Best Original Song in 2003, shared with Jeff Bass and Louis Resto.
The significance here is just profound. Eminem became the first solo rapper to ever win an Academy Award.
And he was famously not even there at the ceremony.
Right, co-writer Louis Resto accepted the award, but it was the moment that the Academy, and by extension mainstream American culture, officially recognized hip-hop not just as popular music,
but as essential Oscar-worthy cinematic storytelling. It was the moment the genre achieved official institutional recognition at the absolute highest level of film art.
So after reaching that absolute zenith fame, artistic recognition, sales records, the relentless pressure of it all led to a dark, really tumultuous period of personal turmoil and addiction.
The darkness began to manifest as this severe dependency on prescription drugs, and it reportedly started pretty subtly back in 2002 during the production of 8 Mile.
He was working these punishing 16-hour days and developed crippling insomnia.
Right, and an associate gave him an Ambien tablet to help him sleep. And that one single experience with prescription medication led to a rapid and just devastating dependency that expanded to Vicodin, Ambien, and Valium.
The scale of the addiction detailed in the sources is almost unbelievable. He wasn't taking recreational doses?
No, he was consuming massive quantities just to function. He reportedly took up to 40 to 60 Valium a day.
40 to 60.
A day. Sometimes with 30 Vicodin on top of that, just to feel normal.
And the addiction had severe physical consequences. He gained a significant amount of weight, ballooning up to 230 pounds.
He became less recognizable because he was relying on fast food, and his metabolism had slowed from the opiates and benzos. He even recounted overhearing 2 teenagers arguing about whether or not it was actually him.
And one of them concluded, Eminem ain't fat.
Yeah. The physical toll just mirrored the mental isolation.
And this spiral all culminates in a near-fatal event in December of 2007. He suffered an accidental methadone overdose.
He'd gotten the pills from a dealer who falsely told him they were safer than Vicodin.
The medical details are just stark. Doctors told him he had ingested the equivalent of 4 bags of heroin.
And that he was about 2 hours from dying if he hadn't gotten emergency treatment immediately. That was his absolute rock bottom.
He initially tried to recover, but the power of the addiction was too great. The sources say he checked out of the facility before being fully detoxed.
Which led to a seizure and a quick return to drug use within a month. And this period of chaos was compounded emotionally by the murder of his childhood friend and D12 member, Proof, in 2006.
Which pushed him deeper into depression and led to a significant musical hiatus.
Rumors of his retirement were everywhere. His greatest hits compilation, Curtain Call, The Hits, came out in 2005, and it was his 4th straight #1 album. But it only fueled the speculation.
People thought it was a final bow. There was even a rumored album title circulating, The Funeral.
But the crucial, definitive turnaround came when he got sober, which he's maintained since April 20, 2008.
And the source material highlights this surprising but really powerful mentor during this time, Elton John.
Despite their controversial pairing at the Grammys years before, Elton John, who's a fellow recovering addict, called Eminem weekly to check on him. He offered sober advice and support.
His recovery was methodical. He got counseling, found a physical outlet in this aggressive exercise program, and dedicated himself to rebuilding his health and his mental clarity.
The comeback was then gradual, starting with Relapse in 2009.
Relapse reestablished his presence, but it was followed by the massive, critically acclaimed recovery in 2010.
And while Relapse was often criticized for its reliance on these, horrorcore accents that felt a little dated.
Recovery was embraced as a more focused, vulnerable, and mature work. It addressed his sobriety and mental health head-on, and it was a huge commercial success. It was the best-selling album worldwide that year.
And the sustained height of his comeback proved that his earlier success wasn't a fluke. It didn't just depend on his aggressive persona.
The Marshall Mathers LP2 in 2013 continued the trend. Debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, his 7th straight studio album to do that.
And that success translated internationally, too. He tied the Beatles for the second most consecutive UK chart-topping albums, with 7.
And by 2014, the RIAA recognized him as the first artist to get 2 digital diamond certifications for singles, meaning sales and streams over 10 million.
For the massive hits, Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie, he successfully transitioned from being an album artist to a streaming-era superstar. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, Eminem's enduring relevance today isn't just about the monumental sales figures. It's about his recognized technical skill as a lyricist.
This is where he truly stands apart.
He's frequently acknowledged by his peers, from the East Coast legends to the new generation, as a technical master of the craft.
That technical prowess is really the engine room of his legacy. He cites influences from Tupac, Kool G Rap, Big Daddy Kane to the Beastie Boys and LL Cool J.
But it's how he synthesizes and pushes the boundaries of those styles that defines him.
Rappers praise him specifically for his mastery of complex rhyme schemes. For the listener, what does that really mean?
It means he's not just rhyming the last word of every line. A standard rap might have simple rhymes, like cat, hat, sat.
Right.
Eminem constructs these elaborate patterns of multisyllabic rhymes throughout the bars. He rhymes entire phrases or groups of words that match phonetically. So he'll bend words and pronunciation to fit the pattern, increasing the complexity exponentially.
It creates this density of language that requires intense focus, but it also gives him incredible flexibility in his storytelling.
The sources also mention his use of syncopation and stacking vocals.
What are those, exactly?
Syncopation, in this context, is altering the standard rhythm of a line, placing rhymes and stress on unexpected beats. He plays with the tempo, fitting way more syllables into a measure than you'd expect without losing clarity.
And stacking vocals.
That's a production technique. He layers multiple recorded takes of his vocals, sometimes 3 or 4, perfectly aligned on the same track. It gives his voice this unique, dense, slightly aggressive quality. It makes the intricate rhymes hit with maximum impact.
His genres are also diverse. Hardcore hip-hop, the dark narratives of horrorcore, and often boundary-pushing comedy hip-hop.
And he's known for his meticulous writing process. He drafts most of his lyrics on paper over days, even a week. So the spontaneity you hear in the delivery is actually the result of painstaking craft.
His commercial records continue to solidify his standing. His career sales exceed 220 million records globally.
Which makes him one of the best-selling music artists of all time.
And he didn't just dominate the 2000s when Billboard named him the Artist of the Decade. He holds the record for 10 consecutive albums debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200.
He achieved that with Music to Be Murdered By in 2020. That kind of longevity at peak performance is almost unheard of.
And the critical acceptance matched the commercial dominance. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022.
Crucially, in his very first year of eligibility, which confirms his status as a universally recognized cultural figure transcending the hip-hop label.
And beyond music, he's consistently engaged politically. He's used his platform to criticize figures across the spectrum, which we should report on impartially.
Historically, he's taken aim at figures like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and the cultural watchdogs Tipper Gore and Lynn Cheney.
His political messaging got sharper in the 2000s. He released the explicit protest song Mosh against George W. Bush in 2004.
And more recently, he turned his focus squarely on the Trump administration.
The 2017 freestyle, The Storm, was maybe his most direct political statement, fiercely criticizing President Donald Trump and his administration.
He later supported Joe Biden's 2020 campaign, letting them use Lose Yourself in a campaign video, and he publicly endorsed Kamala Harris in 2024, at a rally in Detroit.
The sources also detail that notable controversy in 2023 where he sent a cease and desist letter to Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy.
Right, demanded he stop performing Lose Yourself at campaign events. His willingness to use his platform to control his own message, regardless of the target, is an enduring part of his public image.
And his influence is just generational and widespread. He's credited with breaking those deeply rooted racial barriers for white rappers and popularizing hip-hop in Middle America, expanding the genre's reach exponentially.
The list of artists he's influenced is huge. It spans genres and styles. Ed Sheeran, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Juice WRLD, Logic, Tyler the Creator, Drake.
These are artists who absorbed his technical dexterity and his willingness to use his personal story as narrative fuel.
And finally, we come back to the man, Marshall Mathers, and his commitment to his family, which contrasts so sharply with the destructive image of Slim Shady.
He has 3 daughters. His biological daughter, Haley Jade, who recently made him a grandfather in 2025, and 2 adopted daughters, Alina Marie and Stevie Lane.
And he's established successful ventures like the Shade 45 Sirius XM channel and, in a brilliant piece of marketing, the Mom's Spaghetti restaurant in Detroit.
Referencing that famous line from Lose Yourself.
This continuous duality, the man apologizing to his mother in the 2013 song Headlights versus the monster of the Slim Shady persona, that's the narrative engine that secured his global icon status.
The history we've laid out today shows an artist who took an incredibly difficult life, defined by poverty, abandonment, addiction, family conflict, and successfully transmuted that raw, emotional material into record-smashing, critically acclaimed art.
He didn't just succeed. He shattered cultural barriers, establishing himself as one of music history's biggest and most complex crossover successes.
If his career is defined by that tension between Marshall Mathers, the man striving for stability, and Slim Shady, the controversial alter ego whose death was recently announced for his 2024 album.
The death of Slim Shady, coup de grace. We have to ask ourselves, what technical or narrative innovation is going to secure his position as a crucial artistic force to the next decade?
Right. The sources prove his versatility, but the question remains of where his powerful storytelling goes now that he has seemingly laid his most notorious persona to rest. We've covered the controversies, the astonishing records, the profound resilience. As you mull over his cultural footprint, consider this. The success of Lose Yourself, becoming the first solo rap song to win an Oscar, meant that the Academy, and by extension, mainstream American culture, officially recognized hip-hop not just as background music or a fleeting trend, but as essential, profound cinematic storytelling. That's the boundary-shattering power Marshall Mathers achieved and cemented forever.